The Tuesday, April 21st meeting of the Eden Prairie City Council will now come to order. I'll rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Prior to the start of each city council meeting, which is generally the first and/or third Tuesdays of each month, we allow citizens of Eden Prairie to have an opportunity to address us in a more informal setting. This period of time is 6:30 to 6:55 in the council chambers, and if you wish to speak to us at that time, please call the city manager's office at 949-8412 by noon of the meeting date with the subject matter you wish to discuss, your name and your phone number. If time permits, we will have additional speakers that can just show up without making that reservation. Open podium is not recorded or televised. If you have questions about it, again, contact the city manager's office at 949-8412. The first thing tonight is to call to order the HRA meeting, which I am doing at this point. Is there a motion for approval of the HRA meeting minutes from March 31st, 2015?
So moved.
Second.
Any corrections to those? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. The next item is to adopt a resolution approving Amendment 1 to a housing development agreement. Mr. Getchell.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The one item on the HRA does have to do with amending a development agreement related to, with Eden Gardens, related to our green mid-market neighborhood project. The project that we're very familiar with. The original formula related to the project to determine eligible incomes for the mid-market units at Eden Gardens was based on 120% of the area median income, which was established by HUD. As the project moves into construction and development stage, and there's been quite a bit of interest in the project and a lot of interaction between the developer and our residents and others, the feeling over the course of the last few months is that maybe we should slightly relax the income range that's required of a buyer that's tied to the original development of this project to 140% from 120%. I think the developer is here tonight to answer any questions you have along with staff, but the feeling is that some of those units, those homes that are in that mid-market area can still be affordable to people with two incomes, but yet when you hit a certain limit with the 100 to 120% of the AMI, it's just many people are not qualifying. So we're seeing that if we can bump up that percentage slightly, you still have what we would consider affordable mid-market units that might be available to more of our residents. So that would require a change to the housing development agreement, and that is the resolution that's before you tonight to make just that one change.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Getchell or for the developer or staff? Yes, Mr. Aho.
Yes, just for staff and Mr. Getchell. In terms of raising this, is this due to the prices of the units being higher, or is it due to just the qualification process for mortgage,
Yeah, it's completely due to the qualification process and the income side of things. So the homes and the prices of the homes would stay the same and would still be in that mid $300,000 to high $300,000 range. It's on when you're qualifying the incomes. There are some people that are hitting that $90,000 to $100,000 range that do not qualify, and they might make more in the 105, 110, and that's still an affordable house with that income when you try to use that 30% of your income for a housing unit. So people are just kind of missing that mark, and our feeling is, and the developer's feeling is that that's a fair income for a unit at that price.
Okay.
So in other
Thank
words,
you.
they're making a little too much money to qualify for the loan.
That's exactly it in a nutshell.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? Councilmember Nelson.
We're not saying, though, that someone of a higher income category can't decide to want to live in a green. And what about the person who sells their home and is going to pay cash for one of these houses. Are we saying that if you make too much money, you can't live there either?
Of the 36 homes that are in the development, there's a certain number of the homes, 24, that fall in this category. The other 12 homes do not have any requirement whatsoever. But that is true, Councilmember Nelson, at least for a period of time, that there is the income requirement on 24 of those homes. I don't know if Ms. Jeremiah wants to add something?
Yep.
Your Honor, council members, we did modify that restriction a little bit before, so it's actually 20 of the homes that have the
20%.
moderate income restriction. There are 16 available to market rate. And just a little bit more information with regard to the qualifying. According to the HUD standards, you know, the folks in the 120% category should qualify for the price of those moderate income homes. But what we're finding is a lot of people are carrying more student debt and other debt that is affecting their ability to actually qualify for that mortgage. So that's the primary reason for that bump, is to allow them to get into that home and still pay off their student loans, et cetera.
Any other questions?
I would move to adopt the resolution approving Amendment 1 to the Eden Gardens Housing Development Agreement and authorize the mayor and city manager to execute the Amendment 1 to the housing project agreement.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The motion passes. Is there a motion to adjourn the HRA?
Move to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
That brings us back into our city council meeting with proclamations. And the first thing I would like to say tonight before we get started is that last weekend was our Clean Up the Park, our park cleanup day on Saturday. And I think you may have seen a fair number of people out in our parks with plastic bags collecting the trash and debris that has fallen over the course of the winter. And I'd just like to give a big thanks to all of those people. We have families that are doing it, couples, scout groups, school groups, and thank you to all of them for helping to keep our city a beautiful place. So the first thing tonight is I-494 Corridor Commission update, and we have tonight Melissa Madison, the Executive Director of the 494 Corridor Coalition.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, council members. And, thank you, Mr. Gatchell, for extending the invitation to come before you to give an update on what the Corridor Commission is doing and what our staff at Commuter Services are doing in your community and along the corridor. And we'd also like to thank Councilmember Aho for serving as the chair of our board for the past 3 years and the great accomplishments that we've seen occur under your stewardship, and also to thank Dave Lindahl for serving on our board for the past 26 years.
Wow.
He is a founding member.
Yeah.
Just to take a moment to tell you about the Corridor Commission, we are a joint powers organization established in 1986 to address concerns about increasing traffic congestion along the corridor. And we work to encourage economic growth and regional prosperity through improved transportation options. There are 5 member cities of the Corridor Commission, which include Bloomington, Eden Prairie, Edina, Minnetonka, and Richfield. Here's a little information on the priorities that the Corridor Commission is working on currently. The reconstruction of the 35W and 494 interchange. And then we have transit projects that are we're working on. The Green Line extension for the Southwest LRT, Orange Line bus rapid transit on 35W, arterial bus rapid transit along American Boulevard, and Highway 169 bus rapid transit. There are 3 staff people that assist the Corridor Commission and also comprise the Commuter Services Organization. Our staff goes out and works with employers and property managers in our 5 cities to encourage transit use, infrastructure for bicycle commuters, promotion of carpooling and van pooling, etc. We are one of 5 of the Twin Cities transportation management organizations. Anoka County is pictured in yellow. And there is a downtown Minneapolis transportation management organization, as well as a St. Paul Smart Trips transportation management organization, and our area for the 494 TMO you can see in green. And then the remaining TMO is served by Metro Transit, covering the entire light blue area of this graph. On the 494 corridor, there are 19% of the metro area population, 21% of metro area jobs, and over 230,000 jobs in our 5 cities as compared to downtown Minneapolis and downtown St. Paul. The Corridor Commission conducted a study of commute behavior on 494, and we found 95% of the people who commute to jobs on 494 drive alone, 4% carpool, 1% bicycle or take transit, and a third have seriously considered changing jobs due to commuting hassles. Although we did also capture 30% are willing to try transit, and another 30% are open to carpooling. And it was with that information from that study, the Corridor Commission hired our staff to go out and try to reach those commuters that are open to trying an alternative to driving alone. There are a number of free resources for employers and commuters that we offer, assisting companies in enrolling in discounted transit pass programs, setting up preferential carpool parking. We provide free outdoor bicycle racks to any company that does not have one. We also teach how to bike in traffic, lunch and learns, and we provide on-site bicycle tune-up events for employers and multi-tenant office parks. We regularly host commuter fairs, and you can see the other information we provide. We also have robust resources to help companies establish a telework program. We provide individualized commute assistance, which is one of the flagship services that our company provides, free ride matching to any individual to help them find someone to carpool with, transit information where we take a starting address and a work address and do a customized itinerary with the right bus schedules and two free transit passes, so any individual can give it a try. And we have great bicycle commuting resources, which include a customized route plan from the employee's home to their destination with turn-by-turn directions and a map, as well as the Minnesota bike laws and share the road information. And there is a guaranteed ride home, which is somewhat unique, that is offered through the Metropolitan Council. We're only one of 7 states that provides a guaranteed ride home program, where anyone who's using an alternative to driving alone for their commute 3 or more days per week can use the guaranteed ride home, which provides $100 worth of free taxi rides in a year's time to provide a safety net. And then we also have a how to get your boss to say yes to teleworking resource. Throughout the year, we hold Try It campaigns, which are, we've found the most effective way to help someone who drives alone regularly for their commute in a real easy way, try something other than driving alone to be entered into a great prize drawing. And so through the year, we have the Commuter Challenge in the spring, a Bike to Work Week occurring in the summer, and in the fall, Carpool to Work Month. And new this year will be Twin Cities Telework Week, that our organization received money to begin a program to encourage more teleworking. Through the past 12 years that I've been with the Corridor Commission, we have found that companies that provide commuting programs are 3 times more effective at shifting people's behavior from driving alone into using an alternative. And as we assist people with their commute, people report to us that employer-sponsored transportation benefits would be a major influence on their decision to change their commuting behavior. And so I'll highlight a few of the companies that we work with in Eden Prairie. We work with the Optum campus, all locations of Optum and United Health. Optum has a great program. They call it their Orange Bike program, where employees can check out a free bicycle to either ride their bike somewhere over their lunch hour or to use the bicycle to get to a meeting at one of the other locations. And we provide on-site bicycle tune-up events for them each year, and we manage their preferential carpool parking. The Golden Triangle Technology Center offers financial incentives to their tenants that carpool, as well as to their bus riders and bicycle commuters. Super Value has a very robust telework program that we've been assisting them with for the last several years. And then we also work with Cigna, LifeTouch, Eaton, Liberty Property Trust. And I won't read all of the additional company names that we work with in Eden Prairie, but there are many. And to highlight one of the best examples of an employer that has commuting programs occurs right here in Eden Prairie at Starkey Laboratories. They sell discounted bus passes on site at 50% off the retail price. They provide $75 per employee per month towards van pooling, and right now they have 3 van pools. They pay $25 per employee per month for carpooling or biking at least 3 days per week, which is about 100 employees on a regular basis. They offer preferential carpool and van pool parking, and they have showers and bike racks. And a popular event with their employees each summer, they hold a bicycle commuter barbecue. Best Buy in Richfield also has a great commuter program. They offer a free Metro Pass, which is unlimited transit rides on the buses and light rail, which costs $76 per employee per month. And they have just under 300 employees that are using a Metro Pass on a regular basis. We assist them with formulating carpools and van pools. Right now, there are 10 van pools at the Best Buy campus, where Best Buy pays the entire cost, except for each individual pays $25 toward the van pooling price each month. We hold regular bicycle tune-up events, and they have a permanent kiosk of commuting resources in their main hub. And they have an intranet devoted to commuter programs. The Mall of America is working with our organization to fulfill their travel demand management plan, which was required by the City of Bloomington. They will be implementing a transportation coordinator and subsidizing the Metro Pass, providing incentives for people who carpool and take transit, offering preferential carpool parking for their employees, and an air pump to assist bicycle commuters. Normandale Lake Office Park is an additional example of great commuter programs. They promote all of our Try It campaigns, and for the Commuter Challenge each year, they purchase a commuter bicycle for each of their 5 buildings to give away as a special prize for the tenants who take the Commuter Challenge. They have an on-site concierge selling discounted transit passes. We teach a bicycle commuting seminar each spring. We hold an on-site bicycle tune-up event for them. And they regularly promote commute options and highlights on road construction projects with a message of try something other than driving alone during the construction. And we also work with Normandale Community College. They subsidize transit passes, as well as they have preferential carpool parking in multiple locations around their campus. Medica is another great example of a company with commuter programs where they give employees who carpool gas gift cards worth $25 each month. And they provide the Metro Pass and preferential carpool parking and designated lockers for bicycle commuters. My last example is Cargill. Cargill provides $300 per van pool. They have 4 van pools currently. They offer preferential carpool parking and van pool parking, as well as bicycle racks and showers. And our staff spends a substantial amount of time helping companies implement their travel demand management plans. And I listed the travel demand management plans that our staff is currently working on, and I highlighted the Eden Prairie locations in green. We also hold community events. This is an example of the Richfield Bike to Market, which was last year. And we took pictures of people and families who filled out the response to the statement, "I bike because," and people filled in their various reasons for why they ride their bikes. And this family said, "We bike because we like to stay healthy and have fun." And to share with you our annual report summary, our staff held 137 commuter fairs on site with large employers and multi-tenant office buildings last year in 2014. And we have a relationship with 860 companies in our 5 cities where we're working with an individual to promote commuting options. And by individual, I mean a company-sponsored coordinator. We were able to assist in the formation of 871 new carpoolers, and this is just specific to 2014. 561 new transit riders after receiving our assistance, 558 new bicycle commuters, 323 new teleworkers, and 25 new van poolers. And that resulted in over 2,300 people who drove alone before they received assistance from our staff, who reported back to us that they have begun using a sustainable mode 3 or more days per week. And that resulted in an estimated 35.25 million vehicle miles avoided as a direct result of staff outreach. And I took the 35.25 million vehicle miles avoided and divided it by our commuter services budget, and we're able to reduce each vehicle mile for the cost of only 1 cent per mile. And I want to thank you for your longtime membership with the Corridor Commission and your support of commuter services. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you, Melissa. Certainly, giving commuters options and keeping cars on the road is really important to us, given our geography and the way the highways are through Eden Prairie. So I really appreciate your report tonight. And 35.25 million miles, vehicle miles saved, that's very impressive. You should be very proud of that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
you.
Council members, do you have any questions for Melissa?
No,
And
no,
thank you, Brad, for
yeah,
being on this commission.
No questions, but just a comment. Melissa and our staff do a fabulous job, and I mean, if you look at that, a penny per mile saved, I mean, is really a really a good investment, and it really helps too. You know, we just can't build enough roads. We don't have enough infrastructure, and so anytime we can reduce vehicle miles traveled on our infrastructure, it helps everyone get places faster.
Yeah.
So we appreciate all the great work that our staff has done, and they do a fabulous job for us. So thank you, Melissa,
Thank
for
you,
coming.
Councilmember.
Thank you, Melissa. Okay, next we have Terry Egan from the Let's Go Fishing Board. And before you get started, Terry, I just wanted to mention, in case people have noticed, we are having some technical difficulties here with the audiovisual system. I think we finally, everybody's computers that we have here are these screens that show what is on these large screens in here. I think they're all working except for mine. So I don't have one, so I'm kind of looking around trying to see what's on the screens, and it's hard. And we're having difficulty switching cameras. So the audience that is watching on
that's my
TVs at
best side
home,
back there,
yeah, I
yeah.
don't know what they're going to be seeing, but they will get audio, they will get video. I don't know if it's going to be the best video, but they will get it. Thank you, Terry.
Thank you for having me here tonight. I'm here in 2 capacities. One as president of the Eden Prairie chapter of Let's Go Fishing, and also as vice chairman of the board of the Let's Go Fishing organization. I'm here tonight to give you a report on our Eden Prairie chapter, but even more so to express our sincere gratitude for your support of our chapter. The success of our chapter would not be possible without the support and generosity you have shown us, including the use of the Lake Riley Lakeshore, the boardwalk staging area for wheelchairs, the satellite bathroom areas, and the shed storage area. And now this year, we are really thrilled to be allowed to have electrical to run to our shed for our bait refrigerator and our new boat lift as well. Gunner Electric is donating all of the electrical work. When donors and service organizations knew that we were being supported by the city, it opened up support and resources from other individuals and organizations that may have been more challenging to reach without that support. So we cannot thank you enough. Our guests come from a wide variety of locations: assisted living facilities, long-term care, Alzheimer's facilities, true friends who have 5 camps in the metro for disabled adults and children, senior citizen centers, the Veterans Administration, and numerous others. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, 10,000 baby boomers are turning 65 every day in America. With these staggering numbers, some call it the senior tsunami, it's going to take a continuing strengthening of the infrastructure to support the needs and well-being of these older adults. We all know that there is an uplifting and healing power to being outdoors and in nature. In fact, individuals like Ted Harrison, a Twin Cities therapist, uses the wilderness in his work with veterans and others suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder. Let's Go Fishing was created for this purpose: to promote nature's healing and well-being to older adults, veterans, and disabled through free fishing and boating excursions. Many studies have been done on the deteriorating health of people who cannot get out into nature. There's actually a term for it called nature deficit disorder, coined by Richard Louv, author of the international bestseller, The Nature Principle. Many institutionalized older adults have little exposure to nature, the kind of nature where they smell the water, feel the waves, see fish come out of the mysterious depths beneath them, awakening their senses. There are studies done on this. One is called ecotherapy. The studies deal with the psychologically and physically healthful benefits of green exercise, animal-assisted therapy, gardening therapy, bringing nature indoors to hospitals, patients, and wilderness work with at-risk juveniles, to name a few of many research studies. Ecotherapy work has been shown to ameliorate depression, lower blood pressure, enhance self-esteem, encourage new social behaviors in dementia patients, help with impulse control and acting out youth, and decrease post-operative recovery time. Psychotherapy clients, the elderly, people suffering from post-traumatic stress, and patients with mood disorders have all offered favorable reports about ecotherapeutic work. The Let's Go Fishing organization has been around since 2002 and currently has 27 chapters throughout the state and Wisconsin, and will be starting chapters in South Dakota, Colorado, and Arizona. In its 13 years, Let's Go Fishing has served nearly 130,000 guests and is growing nationwide. We here in Eden Prairie are now starting our second full season. Last year, we took 1,823 reservations, which translated into 164 trips and 266 wheelchairs. As of last week, we already have 118 trips booked for this summer. We begin our trips about mid-May, depending on weather, and remain in operation through the end of September. I think it's important to note that the Let's Go Fishing organization is not a drain on our natural resources. Not all of our trips are fishing, and those that are nearly 100% catch and release. Also, the boat is mostly in a slow cruise or a stationary position while on the lake. With the increasing amount of reservations we are getting, we will be looking at purchasing a second boat in the near future as funding allows. It costs our chapter around $15,000 per year to operate one boat, and all of the funding for operations and purchasing of equipment relies completely on donations and grants. Our board and all of our 65 captains and first mates are all volunteer positions. We also try to be ambassadors for Eden Prairie. The 1,823 reservations last year were not only from Eden Prairie, but came from 25 surrounding communities. Many cities in the metro area do not have the natural resources to promote a program like Let's Go Fishing. At this time, I'd like to show you a short video the city of Bloomington did for our program.
There is nothing more serene than the beauty of a calm lake on a beautiful summer day. A sight everyone can appreciate, but not everyone has the ability to get out and enjoy the water. Whether it's a mobility issue or simply anxiety about non-routine activities.
I think part of it for the elderly is they just get so comfortable in their space, they're afraid to try new things, or things that they might have tried as a child, they're kind of fearful of that.
Bloomington Human Services has been working with the volunteer-run nonprofit organization Let's Go Fishing since 2013.
I love the water and I love fishing. And where I can help anybody, no matter what their age, disability or not, to go fishing just for an hour, 2 hours makes their entire day.
4 days a week during the summer, this 28-foot-long, 12-passenger pontoon is loaded up and a therapy session of a different kind begins.
Water is so calming, you know, listening to the water lap against the shoreline, just looking out, once in a while catching a glimpse of an eagle swooping by to catch their dinner for the day. It's just calming and very peaceful.
Some spend the day searching for that big catch.
He's a monster.
Yes, he is.
Here we go.
Woohoo!
Pretty fish. Look at here.
Others simply long for the ride, but all experience a freedom they don't have every day.
For me, it's a way of just getting away and relaxing and have a good time.
I enjoy the fact that I live in a condo and in Bloomington and have an opportunity to get out on a beautiful lake like this and fish with a bunch of nice people.
Since Let's Go Fishing's creation in 2002, the program has expanded beyond just seniors, serving more than 100,000 veterans, people with disabilities, and children at no cost as well. The program is always looking for both donations and volunteers, and through that support, the hope is participants leave feeling accomplished and full of happiness.
They got an opportunity to leave wherever they were, to come out to enjoy the fresh air, and companionship with other people, and just to experience the water again, getting back on the water.
I want them to just enjoy themselves. I'll bait their hooks, I'll cast it out for them, I'll reel it in if they can't, and I'll take the fish off. But I want them to just be out here for the day, just to enjoy the weather that we have. And it's an absolutely beautiful day.
Reel in a good time with Let's Go Fishing. For more information, visit lgfedenprairie.com.
Again, on behalf of the Eden Prairie chapter of Let's Go Fishing, thank you. Your support and the support from service organizations like the Lions, Lioness, Noon Rotary, Eden Prairie Community Foundation, and local businesses is a tribute to the sense of community caring for each other. We hope to continue this wonderful relationship with you into the distant future, and we hope you will keep Let's Go Fishing in your larger plans for the park on Lake Riley. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. You just work with the best group of volunteers. They're just wonderful
They
people
are.
that you work with, and they must have so much fun working together. Well, I've seen them working together, and they
Yeah.
get along really well, and everybody has a great time, and I'm sure they convey that same sense of fun and happiness to the clients that come out on these
And they're totally
cruises.
devoted to the people.
Yes. They are. Thank you so much for bringing
Yeah,
this
thank
concept to
you.
Eden Prairie. Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the agenda and other items of business?
Move approval.
Second.
Any items to add to the agenda? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Is there a motion for approval of the minutes from the council workshop held Tuesday, March 31st?
So moved.
Second.
Any corrections? All in favor?
Aye.
The motion passes. Is there a motion for approval of the minutes from the city council meeting held that same date?
Move approval.
Second.
Any corrections to those minutes? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
The motion passes. We have items A through R on the consent calendar. Is there a motion for approval?
Move approval.
Second.
Any items to question or pull for discussion there? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The motion passes. That brings us to our first public hearing tonight, which is a first reading of an ordinance amending the city code, chapter 11, section 1.03, subdivision 3, relating to the height of fences. Mr. Getchell.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. This item comes to you from city staff, and it's mainly due to an update and a change in the Minnesota State Building Code. The State Building Code was recently revised to allow fences to be constructed to 7 feet of height without an issuance of a building permit. And up until that point, it had been 6 feet. And our current city code limits the height of fences to 6 feet. And in certain cases, there have been variances applied for and granted above 6 feet. But the feeling was, as this item was brought to the Planning Commission and now to you, is that we should probably match the building code requirements with the city code requirements. So we would ask that the 7 feet apply without the issuance of a permit with state building code and with the city. And we would deal with any variances beyond the 7 feet in this case under those circumstances. This item was brought to the Planning Commission and was voted 5-0 to recommend approval at their March 23rd, 2015 meeting. And staff can answer any questions you may have.
Okay, any questions for staff? This is a public hearing. Is there anyone from the audience that wants to address the council on the fence height?
Seeing none, I move to close the public hearing and approve first reading of the ordinance amending Chapter 11.03 to address fence height.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Motion passes. We come to our second of 3 public hearings. It's the first reading of an ordinance amending City Code Chapter 11, Sections 11.20 and 11.30 by adding subdivision 4 relating to medical cannabis dispensaries. Mr. Getchell.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Again, recent legislative changes in the law have allowed for the legal distribution of medical cannabis for qualifying patients beginning in the state of Minnesota July 1st of this year. That state law then allows for 8 distribution facilities, 1 for each congressional district in the state of Minnesota, and this is differentiated from manufacturing facilities, so those are separate facilities in addition to this. We're talking about dispensaries. We were contacted by Minnesota Medical Solutions several months back regarding the possible location of a dispensary within Eden Prairie, and through that discussion, the feeling that the city staff had was that this is a new use, and it may not apply or be appropriate in all of our zoning districts. And so over the last several months, there's been quite a bit of research and discussion as to what the best regulations in city code and the best locations may be for this type of use. So there's quite a bit of background in your packet, and we're going to have a presentation and any questions from the project proponent here. But in a nutshell, from the city staff perspective, we narrowed down the possible locations if a dispensary were to be located in Eden Prairie to be in the office or industrial districts, and I think you're going to hear quite a bit about the potential operation as to why that may best fit in that location. Also, from the information that we received, that this type of facility would be approximately 3,000 to 3,500 square feet in size, would possibly require about 15 parking stalls, and may have up to 80, at most 80 individuals a day visiting a facility like this. And again, it's important to note that this is all under the current legislation in Minnesota applying to those people that could have access under very limited conditions to medical marijuana. And if that changes or is expanded, and again, under the medical scenario, we're not even talking about a recreational scenario, but in just a medical scenario, that the code that we have brought forth, those would not apply. It only applies to the current statute, so it would have to be addressed if, again, state law were changed in those instances that I think you're going to hear about tonight. So it is a public hearing, Mayor, but if you would allow the folks from Minnesota Medical are here to provide you with an overview and a presentation, and then staff and I wouldn't say the project proponent, because this isn't a project. This is actually an amendment to our code related to the districts. We don't have a project in front of us. I'm sorry about that. But the Minnesota Medical can answer any questions you would have.
Okay, thank you. Welcome.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for the invitation to present tonight. So my name is Kyle Kingsley. I'm a physician from Minneapolis, Minnesota. Father of 3 small kids, currently reside in southwestern Minnesota, southwestern Minneapolis. And I am also the CEO of Minnesota Medical Solutions, which is one of the 2 registered manufacturers here in the state of Minnesota. If you had told me 18 months ago that I'd be standing here presenting this to a city, I would have been flabbergasted because I would have generally, I thought that medical cannabis was an excuse for recreational use, and I did not have a great appreciation for the medical benefit. A cascade of things happened to our medical director and myself in the emergency department setting, and it opened our mind, and we decided we were going to take a look at this, and we were kind of shocked by what we saw in the industry. It's an industry that has nothing to do with medicine, nothing to do with pharmaceutical process. And we decided, as Minnesota circled around a more restrictive law, to throw our hat in the ring. And we put together our team of friends who are mainly scientists, pharmacists, other physicians, and really came up with what we feel is the most comprehensive plan in the history of medical cannabis. So let me just tell you a little bit more about Minnesota Medical Solutions. I do want to give you guys a lot of information here in the spirit of partnership. And so some of these pictures are going to be the first time they've been seen in public. There's several components to Minnesota Medical Solutions. This is just part of our team here. And I just want to kind of give you a rundown of some of the people that are pictured here. Our security director is a former Secret Service agent, a former narcotics detective. We have a chief business development officer, a real estate guru, chief science officer, head pharmacist, chief technology officer, head horticulturalist, and the bulk of the folks up here are all scientists and physicians. It's a pretty remarkable crew, and they've really formed the cornerstone of what we're doing here in Minnesota. And this will provide medications that are safer than anything in the history of this industry to our patients, including those in Eden Prairie. Secondary to this is our group of Minnesota investors. We have a lot of small investors here in Minnesota, and we are not beholden to venture capital or any institutional money. We can very much focus on patient care, and we're not beholden to immediate returns to our investors, which is a very big advantage in an industry like this. This is more of our science team. Again, PhDs, doctors as far as the eye can see. It's a very distinct change from the industry standard. We have partners throughout the country and throughout Minnesota. We believe in a multi-expert approach to really give us the, redefine the standard of care for the industry. This is our facility out in Otsego, Minnesota. This was last November, just before we were awarded the license. We actually started construction of this 5 months before we were awarded the license in Minnesota. We believe in greenhouse production. We believe in environmental conservation. And from water conservation to the use of natural sunlight, we really believe in doing this the right way. This is a picture from February. This is a fully functional greenhouse facility, and we're currently operating at capacity, again, all in greenhouse space. This is the MinMed difference, and I'm just going to touch this in broad strokes. This is how we feel that we differentiated ourselves in Minnesota and in industry at large. We are first and foremost a medical organization. We're forcing cannabis to yield to our world, which is medicine and science. That's very different than the industry standard. Our science is second to none. One of our main partners is a gentleman named Dr. John Thompson, who's a separation chemist, and he really allows us to redefine the medicines that we can offer our patients. Our community focus, it's very important to us that we give back to the communities. We're not going to make money at all costs. We are going to donate via Minnesota Canon Care, our nonprofit, back to our communities, including Eden Prairie, if you'll have us. Our environmental plan is second to none from an environmental conservation standpoint, as I mentioned. We are doing all greenhouse facilities. What we're doing in broad strokes is we're inserting standard science, standard medicine, standard operations into an industry that doesn't really know what that is. This is the pillar of what we do. Our quality system is the basis of what we do. We use ISO certification, good manufacturing practices. On top of that, we build our operational excellence. And this leads to robust research. We're working with the University of Minnesota and some other folks on research proposals. And the patient experience is kind of at the pinnacle of this pyramid. As far as products go, I do want to focus on this. There's a lot of misconceptions out there as far as what we are actually going to produce. The vast majority of our medicines are going to fall on this spectrum. And these are there's two important compounds in cannabis: THC, CBD. There's two that we've been focusing on initially here. Most of our medications, actually the majority, will not be terribly intoxicating for folks. So a lot of these medications that are high in CBD actually don't cause intoxication. They don't cause people to be stoned or altered. For example, children are treated with CBD medications for seizures, and that actually is not altering for them, which is pretty remarkable. And it's a very common misconception that we're only going to be selling these altering medications. As far as administration routes go, we are going to be selling oils for vaporization, capsules, and oral tinctures. We're not able to sell plant material. There's no bud that's going to be sold, no plant material that's unprocessed. And that's law enforcement is a pretty big fan of that because they can very easily differentiate between our medicine and the stuff that's purchased on the street. All of our medications, all of our products go through a pipeline. That's kind of beyond the scope of this presentation. But I do want to show you our labels. And so if you take a look at this, this looks like medicine, and that's really our point. We are making highly formulated oils that are much more medicine than a street drug. And you can see that this is going to be readily different from the street drugs that people come in contact with. Sorry about this. This is our current timeline. You can see right now we're in the midst of doing quality systems, cultivation. We have refining in mass, testing. We're working on dispensary build out. I'll get to that in just a minute. And one of the things I want to mention is that staff training is really important to us. So the people that would actually be in Eden Prairie in the dispensary, there's going to be a head pharmacist. We'll probably hire 2 to 3 part-time pharmacists here in Eden Prairie. And there'll also be farm techs, and that'll be a pretty extensive team. It could be from 3 to 12 farm techs that we employ based on demand. And so these are going to be well-trained folks that are well-versed in our medications. This is our dispensary plan in broad strokes. I don't know if you can see the detail there. I do have some additional pictures, some mock-ups of what the facility might look like. So the dispensary is very different than what you imagine in Colorado or California, which kind of terrifies me. It doesn't really have a whole lot to do with medicine. What I imagine is something like a dermatology office, and so a beautiful waiting room. Only patients, caregivers, and their parents are going to be able to get into the facility, so the public cannot access our facility. You can see there's a small foyer or a man trap there, and there's going to be a security front desk person there who will make sure that people are registered or that they're caregivers in order to get into the building. If they aren't, we'll give them information on how to become registered if they qualify. So the patient will initially go into the waiting room, and a big difference is they're not going to be waiting in a rope line to talk to some stone 22-year-old bud tender. They're going to be greeted by a farm tech who's going to bring them back into a private consultation room. So it's going to be kind of a mixture of a pharmacy and a clinic. So it really is going to be a medical experience. The final checkout has to be with a pharmacist. This is a mock-up of our Minneapolis dispensary, which actually is rapidly closing in on completion. And this is what I imagine. There's multiple windows to interact with the pharmacist. Some more renditions here. This is a picture from the waiting room. And then this will be an example of what the security trap could look like there. So the security apparatus is really over the top in the dispensaries, from vaulted medications to 360-degree cameras. As you can imagine, having a Secret Service agent as your security director, really nothing is left to chance there. It's really a comprehensive solution that we've come up with. So again, this is the min-med difference, and at this time, I've missed many things, but I'd invite questions from you all if you have any concerns.
Thank you. I think there will be a lot of questions. Some will have to do about your business, and some will have to do with this ordinance. So, Councilmember Wickstrom, you were first.
Yes, I just have a question. I mean, this is such a new concept and really kind of an innovation. So I guess, how do you know you're going to have a customer support base to actually have your business flourish and be productive? I mean,
right.
How do you know?
Yeah, so we do have one good lead there. The state has given us numbers, but there was the state came out with a questionnaire that basically people could spontaneously respond to. And there were over 1,000 people that would have qualified for medical cannabis that responded to that. And so we know that we have at least 1,000 people in the state just based on this survey that are interested. Based on our numbers, we anticipate somewhere between 5,000 and 10,000 patients will register under the current law.
So these are like 1,000 patients who would use it for an extended amount of time. That's what you're thinking, not just like one time,
Correct.
A week or
the exception
2
really be
weeks.
terminally ill patients. Mm-hmm. So there'd be a shorter term there.
Gotcha. I've got another question.
Yep.
How many companies like this exist? Are you really brand new first innovation?
So there's 2 in the state of Minnesota that qualify under the Minnesota law, which is very restrictive, very different. And to my knowledge, we are dramatically beating the industry standard right now. There are some amazing companies out there, but I really anticipate that we will redefine the industry.
And you hold the entire function as part of your business, everything from growing to the distilling or whatever the word is, harvesting and distilling, creating the pharmaceutical, and then dispensing it. The entire, is that how the other company works as well?
Correct. So in Minnesota, it's complete vertical integration is what they call it. So from the seed all the way through to the patient. Which is great from our standpoint. It really allows us to refine the systems. We know exactly what we're getting, and there's no one to blame about the end product except for us. And so there's complete accountability and less uncertainty there.
And the level of security will still remain high, even if the sales of the pharmaceutical might not meet that. That's kind of my concern.
Correct. The security
question.
The security level won't change, and I relate this to a pharmacy. And you look at a CVS, there's a lot more valuable cargo there than what we have in our dispensary, and yet our security is going to be dramatically enhanced compared to that.
But you have to admit, your pharmaceutical, if you want to call it that, your product is compelling. I mean,
yes,
and
yeah.
New and interesting.
Well, and the cash-only aspect of the business.
That's true.
Yeah, so
it leads to security concerns.
I can tell you a little about that, Madam Mayor. So we actually have an open banking relationship. One right now. We anticipate probably 2 or 3 open banking relationships here in the state of Minnesota, which is exceedingly unusual for the industry. And the way we've done that is by just being very open. We don't feel that we're doing something wrong at this point. We feel that, I maybe wouldn't do business with the cannabis industry at large if I was a banker, but I would do business with MidMed. We're physicians, we're scientists, we're not laundering money. But that's important when you're a cash-only business. At least we have a place to put that cash, a bank, versus paying our bills with trash bags full of cash, as you've seen, I'm sure, in Colorado. So.
I had some. Are you through, Sherry?
I am.
Okay, Dr. Kinsley, I had a couple questions. Did you say that you're a nonprofit?
No, we are.
Oh,
yeah,
you are a
just
for-profit.
LLC,
Okay.
correct.
So there are 8 congressional districts. A patient has to register their certification with the state, but are they free to get their medicine dispensed at in any congressional district?
Correct.
Okay.
They can go to any district.
Okay, and then is your manufacturing occurring at the same site as your greenhouse?
By law, it is. So the entire manufacturing process and cultivation process has to occur out
That's
there.
where a lot of security needs to be.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, we see the security system there is really over the top.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Councilmember Case.
Yeah, really this is for, I guess, our staff or our attorney, Rick, but if legislative law happened to change later on and then supersedes our local ordinance, would there have been any disadvantage for us having been first or one of the first communities to allow this type of operation in, but then if law changes, could this operation morph into something that we'd look back and go, we shouldn't maybe have allowed this in?
Councilmember Case, Mayor and Council, the ordinance restricts the distribution of the medical cannabis to those ailments, medical conditions that are currently identified in the state statute. So a change in the state statute that might be anticipated is a broadening of those health categories to allow people with other health issues to qualify for the certification to obtain medical cannabis. Our ordinance is keyed to the current definition of those medical conditions. So if the state changes that, then we would need to come back to the council and study and address whether the regulations we have in effect in terms of zoning for this kind of operation are adequate. We have in the ordinance specific parking requirements based upon the anticipated usage at the facility. If it's opened up to more conditions, you could consider that there'd be more patients visiting the facility, and we may need to revise those requirements. So that's how I don't see state statute trumping the city's regulations. The state would have to deliberately do that and take away the zoning regulation, which would be quite unusual.
And all bets would be off then anyway. So.
Right. I mean, they've done that for group homes, essentially mandating that you allow those into single-family residential, and there's a strong public policy behind that. It would be difficult to imagine the same kind of impetus here.
Thank you.
Councilmember Aho.
Sure. I have a question for you, Doctor. What's driving your decision to come to Eden Prairie? Obviously you've probably evaluated other communities, and is Eden Prairie really your sole focus for a location, and do you have any locations in mind?
Yes, we do have some specific locations in Eden Prairie that we're in negotiations with. If it's okay, I'd prefer to hold off until we have that finalized.
Right.
What I can say is we did kind of a demographic analysis of the 3rd Congressional District, and we found Eden Prairie to be very accessible for a lot of the patients in the 3rd District. And so it was one of the top priorities for us was to place it here. It was strictly based on patient accessibility. That's pretty important to us. There's a lot of disgruntlement in the patient community because, as you know, there's only 8 congressional districts, 2 of which we have the 1st and 7th stretch. One is from east to west in the south of the state. The 7th goes from north to south on the far western edge of the state. So the 3rd, at least, is a little bit better position there from an accessibility standpoint.
It's compact, but there's a lot of people. And the
Exactly.
third is probably the most people.
Exactly.
In terms of formulations, I guess I don't know much about how you do formulations because, is there really dosages and things like that are really well determined in terms of, if you have this particular condition, what is the dosage based on, size, weight of the patient, age of the patient, all the different factors that you would take into consideration for normal medications. Are those really well defined at this point, or is that kind of experimental?
So that's a physician question. That's the question we're getting from physicians. And what I can say is that it is fairly nebulous in the industry right now. For me, there's some fundamental things that we have to do as a scientific organization. We have to be able to give a dose of oil to somebody and say, this is how many milligrams of THC are there. That is not the industry standard right now, which is just mind-blowing to me. So we're able to formulate our medications to know a precise dose in a given volume of oil or tincture or a pill. We'll be able to say there's 5 milligrams of THC here. As far as your question about what do we use for what, there's, again, the industry has a lot of mythology around that, but there are several FDA-tracked medications that we're using as our guidance for initial dosing. And so you may have heard of Marinol, which is synthetic THC, and that's pure THC. It's not the best medication. It's wrought with side effects. But we're using that as our starting dose, and it's in a whole plant extract. And so what I mean by that is in addition to the THC, there's all these other compounds from the plant that are in these oils. And so we're cheating and using those medications. There's 2 other, Sativex and Epidiolex, that are similar FDA-tracked medications. We're using that to formulate our dosing.
So there really is there's no defined standards in terms of normal medications that you would prescribe? I mean, it seems like it's developing at this point.
Right. These are fairly well-studied medications. So Marinol is very well-studied, and that's kind of the one we're most worried about because that's the THC, the intoxicating element. And that's a very well-studied medication. It is wrought with side effects because it doesn't have these other accompanying cannabinoids and other compounds. So there's actually, on our spectrum that I showed you, there's actually a medication at the midway point, and on each end, that's an FDA-tracked medication that we're using as our guidance. So I would be pretty nervous if I didn't have that and I was just relying on the industry. We're relying on standard medicine to start as a starting point. Now, some patients are, an interesting thing about cannabis, like many medications, some people need a dramatically increased amount of any of these compounds to get the same therapeutic effect. And so it's like any medicine, there's going to be some learning there.
So is it in the physician's desk reference or whatever that, the Bible?
Yeah, it's still Schedule I controlled substance, so it's not, but we intend to put it there. So.
Councilmember Nelson.
Are you planning on renting or purchasing?
We'll be renting, it appears, for all of our dispensaries to start here.
So if you end up having to go from one to another, say a building is purchased and changes, will you keep up all your standards in the next place that you might end up moving to?
Yeah, so we're actually required to meet our standard that we put forth in the application. And I'd invite you guys to, if you Google Minnesota Medical Cannabis, you'll get the state's website. And the redacted version of our application is there. And I think you'd find it pretty impressive. We're legally bound to that as a condition of our license. So.
And how long a leases at least have you gotten where you've already established?
Generally 5 years is the lease.
Okay, so this is an indication that you would plan to be in a location for at least a certain length of time.
Yeah, we do see it as a partnership, and I can say that when we looked at our dispensary model, I wanted to build a model that I'd be comfortable with having it in my neighborhood. And I can honestly say that with what we've come up with, our team, our philosophy, I would be comfortable with that. So.
Thank you. Thank you. Councilmember Wickstrom, another question.
You know what? Well, I just kind of had a statement, and that is, in looking at the size seems very appropriate to the function to me, and that was one of the features I thought made me comfortable. I just wanted to throw that out there.
One other thing, I think this is going to be a really effective size. We're hoping to leverage online processing and a phone bank to really streamline the patient process and have them, we want them to have an efficient process. No one wants to stand around in our dispensaries. And so if they can go through we have treatment algorithms that will get patient to their treatment. If they can go through that online with a farm tech or on phone, and they walk in and grab their medicine, and that's ideal.
But no drive-throughs.
No drive-throughs, yeah. That's,
Okay. Thank you. I don't think there are any other questions.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kinsley. This is a public hearing. Is there anyone from the audience that wants to address the council on this issue? Okay.
I have one, I forgot, I'm sorry, I have one more comment. In the body of the text that we have, and I hope this is different, if you look where there's a segment where it says background and there's a number of bullet points, the statement above that, it says state law requires that medical cannabis distribution facilities be located 1,000 feet from a school.
At least, probably.
Yeah, so I'm not real happy about that wording. I think that's probably not the intent of the ordinance.
Yeah, and that's not in the ordinance.
No, that is correct. Councilmember Aho, that is state law that it's the minimum of 1,000 feet.
Okay, so
Yep.
it is just state law, but it's just the way that is worded.
Worded makes it seem that it has to be within 1,000 feet. No, it has to be at least 1,000 feet away.
That I know that was the intent, but I
Wanna
just
be
want to
clear.
make sure
No,
that
good.
that we are okay.
Exactly, measure that off, exactly 1,000 feet.
Yeah, exactly.
Has to be right there.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Or
So,
more.
Seeing no one wants to speak, I move to close the public hearing and approve first reading of the ordinance amending Chapter 11 to define and regulate the use of medical cannabis distribution facilities.
I'll
there a
second
second?
that.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
That's, any opposed? The motion passes. Thank you, staff.
And Mayor, I just
And
want
thank you
to,
for your presentation
Yeah,
tonight.
very good.
and I did want to clarify, because we were having a couple things going on at the same time, and one was that being approached by Minnesota Medical, the feeling is that the council and the community should have the full understanding of what it would be as if a dispensary had opened up in the community, but the action that you took, just to be clear, first reading, there would have to be a second reading, is that if there were a facility to open in the community, even if it was another company under another scenario, as City Attorney Rosso said, it has to be in line with state law, that the action that you took limited that use to certain zoning districts. So that was the action that you took. It wasn't to approve
Right.
a dispensary in Eden Prairie. We obviously know from tonight's presentation that our area is where they're looking at, but that could also be another community as well.
But we will not be asked to approve a dispensary any more than we'd be asked to approve whether or not Popeyes wants to go where KFC was.
You are exactly correct. So
Right.
that was the idea with having the full presentation.
Yes. Mr. Rosso.
Mr. Getchell was addressing what I.
Okay, great, thank you. All right,
Very good.
item 3 is, or actually item C, is to approve the wellhead protection plan. Mr. Getchell?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Our last public hearing is for a public hearing and action on our wellhead protection program. Eden Prairie and all other public water supply systems are required by the Minnesota Department of Health to maintain a program which protects our public water supply from contamination. And our city has a program that is, the plan itself has to be updated every 10 years, and we also have 2-year updates within that. So tonight, we do have with us from our city staff, Rick Wayleen, who heads up this entire effort, and he will provide a presentation this evening, and then we have a public hearing.
Good evening, Mayor, distinguished council members, and city staff. What I have before you tonight is a brief presentation that's kind of a recap of where we are with respect to the planning process and the development of a wellhead protection plan that I had the opportunity to brief you about a year and 4 months ago. This update will kind of show you where we're at today. I'd like to invite Kevin Miller to stand up. Kevin is our consulting geologist. He's been working with us for a lot of years as our hydrologist, and he was instrumental in the development of this plan. The agenda for tonight's presentation includes just a few items. We'd like to discuss a little bit about the wells themselves, highlight some of the key aspects of the wellhead protection plan, and then especially spend a little bit of time on going over what the plan entails for moving forward into the future. The wellhead protection planning process is a rather deliberate one. It takes, on average, 2 years, if not longer, to complete. In the summer of 2011, we began working with Kevin to put together a study, the study of the geology of the ground beneath us and the way our aquifer performs, as well as the geology above the water supply system that provides the city its drinking water. That was a very deliberate scientific process. It gave us part 1, after which I briefed the council last year, which described the science that went into how do we understand our environment and what do we use with that information to protect it. Part 2 is more about the management procedures and protocols, knowing that science to be able to affect our environment and manage that accordingly. Eden Prairie well systems are pretty normal as far as the metro goes. We have 15 deep wells. They're drilled down to about 400 feet on average in depth. They're in the Prairie du Chien Jordan aquifer system. Most of the metro communities that supply water from wells also derive their water from the Prairie du Chien Jordan aquifer system. Our city is surrounded by a number of water bodies within and without, but primarily it's important to know that we've got 2 million roughly acres of contributing watershed that provides water to the water bodies that ultimately leaks down through the ground and can contribute water to where we draw our water from deep in the earth. The water supply aquifer is important to know. gets its recharge from areas to the north of us. So when you walk around Eden Prairie and you notice the water bodies within our border, the water that seeps into the ground or accumulates because of rainfall actually flows downslope through the ground and might affect the water that's being delivered to communities to our south and a little bit to our east. But Eden Prairie itself receives water that's recharged from areas much further to the north. Last bullet on here, I'd like to call attention to the fact that we are permitted for 3.4 billion gallons of water a year. Sounds like a lot. Over the last probably 3, 4, 5 years, we've seen a steady decline in that. So that's good news. Our water conservation efforts are actually, I think, making a difference. I'd like to compare our water supply management area to the way it used to be. Right now, because our plan has not been adopted and accepted by the state yet, that polygon you see in the middle of the slide defined with the blue line, that is the drinking water supply management area for the city. With the new science that we went through for roughly 18 months, we've come to find that the orange-red polygon around the larger area of land encompasses the area that we really need to be concerned about. All that really means is that area that is surrounded by that polygon has an influence on our drinking water in some way or another. This slide kind of shows us some of the geology of the land that lies above our well. All of our wells, as I said before, are drilled to a very deep depth of around 400 feet. But the glacial till, which was pushed into this area by glacial action many, many years ago, left soils, sands, and gravels that hold a lot of water and pass a lot of water. The Prairie du Chien Jordan, the very top of that formation is a dolomitic limestone. It was previously thought to be rather confining in nature, and by that I mean that because it's a limestone, water doesn't pass through it very well. So it was thought to have shielded overlying water from leaking down into our water supply. But because of what's been learned recently, we now know that the dolomite has a lot of fractures and a lot of cracks, which in effect serve as pipes to deliver water very rapidly from one place to another. So this is what causes us to have a concern and be even more interested in protecting our water supply than we were in the past.
Could I ask a question there?
Certainly.
And I don't know if it's tritium or tritium. What's the?
Tritium. Kind of a sh sound.
Tritium. Which I know is from the nuclear test site from '53, and that's how we know, as it spread across the U.S., if we're getting infiltration in the last, 60 years. But do we know if that's coming fast through those fissures, or do we think it might have trickled down over the last 60 years?
Well, what's interesting to note is that as you pump a well, the water comes to that well from all directions in a circumference, and that water comes at various rates, speeds, and capacities depending on the surrounding rock. All that we know from the radioactive material that's showing up in the well water all over the United States is that in some places that water has an opportunity to get into the aquifers, and we're not exactly sure where that is. But one thing you can rely on is that far more water is coming to the well that is not contaminated or does not have that minuscule amount of tritium within it. It's kind of an interesting science. We always used to think that water flowed to us in kind of a linear fashion, but water that is close gets there much faster than water that is far, far away. But because it takes longer doesn't necessarily mean that it isn't as bountiful. It's kind of an interesting thing to look at.
I'm intrigued by all of it too. Yeah.
Our bordering communities are shown on this map, and I just kind of like to call attention to the fact that Excelsior, Greenwood, Deep Haven, and Minnetonka all share a responsibility in protecting our water supply. We're obviously concerned about that. What's also important is that their water supplies need to be protected as well. A partnership is what we've been working with these communities so that as we move forward in the future, our continuing process of protecting our water supply is just as important to them. We recently had a meeting with Minnetonka, and they have agreed that for potential contaminant sites, for people who own wells, for Class 5 sites, which are basically gas stations that have a pit where you can change oil, or septic systems that supply more than 20 people at a time, or take the refuse from more than 20 people at a time. Those types of sites that lie in Minnetonka are important to us because of this plan, but they will also do the mailing to them because those people live in Minnetonka. They wouldn't recognize a letter from Eden Prairie and they'd probably throw it away. But the fact of the matter is that we've developed a staff partnership with them, and likewise, they believe that they will have some similar sites here in Eden Prairie because their wells are just immediately to the north of our border. So it's important for us to make sure that that's wired in the next several years. The Class 5 well locations I mentioned, you see some dots on this map. It's hard to see on the big screen, but I'd like to point out that with our previous drinking water management supply plan, we identified all the same information that we identify now for the next stage. It's just that our area is much larger. So we're focusing on what is the difference? What are those dots, those areas of concern that are in that area outside the old drinking water supply management area? We're required by the program to identify 25, but there are easily over 100 in each one of these categories that we need to work for in the future to identify, reach out to, and manage. Here's another slide that depicts the active non-municipal wells. Those are basically private wells in people's backyards. We believe there could easily be over 500 of those in Minnetonka alone. So we'll definitely want to make sure that Minnetonka is working with us to reach out to these people. The known release sites, the good news here is that anything in the MPCA database that shows that someone has reported a contaminant release, each one of these sites that we have identified have been taken care of. There's one that's in the works, but it's showing that all the measures have been taken to close the site out with the MPCA standards.
One quick question on the
Yes.
residential wellheads. Are those typically at the same depth as for example, a city well? So
No.
ours are at 400. I would assume those are probably not as deep. And if so, are they penetrating into the Prairie du Chien aquifer?
That's a very good question. No, they are not. Residential wells, because they don't require so much volume of water, are typically less than 200 feet deep, and they're drilled into a glacial till formation. The water is more readily available. It doesn't take so much energy to pump, a lot cheaper, meets the needs of the homeowner.
Okay, thank you.
So what's next? A primary concern to us, as I had alluded to, are all of those wells that are out there that could be a pathway for contamination. We just want to reach out to all those homeowners and make sure that those wells are identified in the system and that we've got a plan to address them. We want to encourage those homeowners to seal them if they're not used. We may look at opportunities to maybe participate in the form of a grant or something of that nature to help others do the right thing. We're working with city staff to make sure that the existing regulations allow us to protect future development such that future development doesn't harm our water supply. We're looking at a coordinated spill response so that when a spill is identified in an adjoining community, they become as aware as we are that that spill has impacts on our water supply. Of course, we want to raise the public awareness. We're already working rather deliberately on managing our stormwater program, and we'd like to partner with our additional communities other than Minnetonka in the same manner that we've done before. These are the primary things that I wanted to call attention to. The program, part 2, in front of us is rather thick. It's got a lot of diagrams, charts, and information. But these are the highlights. These are the main things that I'd like the City Council to be aware of, and for any members of the public who are here tonight to participate in this hearing. Do you have any questions of me?
Councilman Braho.
In terms of studying the wellhead protection, I mean, do you also look at the long-term viability of the aquifer in terms of capacity and providing water for all of the people that it serves? So in other words, you know, at the rate that our current usage is, are we in any danger of depleting the aquifer to the point where it would not be, providing water for our residents?
Sure. I appreciate that question. Also, we're involved in another 10-year review process in what's called the city's water supply plan. You may have heard that the Metropolitan Council is working very intently with all the communities in the 7-county area to come up with a collaborative approach to identifying future water sources in various different capacities. We participate in that. We're in the midst of sharing information to proceed with our comprehensive guide plan update. Chapter 7 or Chapter 6 of that is very much about that whole process. So that's being studied heavily, and we're looking at that very intently. For us, we have nothing to worry about. Our water supply, one way of looking at it is if we didn't use it, it would spill into the Minnesota River and go down to the Gulf of Mexico, because our formation actually drains into the Minnesota River.
Great, thank you.
Councilmember Nelson.
Yeah, when we're looking at, the well owners in Eden Prairie, are we going out and talking to them, or are we just sending them a letter? How are we interacting with them just to make sure that they understand that, they could do something that would impact water supply?
In the past, we've had 2 phases of sending out bulletins and handbills delivered. We've delivered handbills directly to Class 5 wells, which are the gas stations that have a potential for contaminating, and we've interacted directly with those people. We have not reached out individually yet, but that is part of our ongoing Part 2 plan of the Wellhead Protection Plan.
Will those people have to fill out something saying that they understand that, their well impacts water supply, and, that they have every intention of using it properly? Or I know there are people that have them, that they like to use them for watering yards and all kinds of things. But I also thought that there were some wells that are just sort of sitting out there and need to be capped. But are we actually going to ask of them some specific proactive thing rather than just saying, have fun watering?
Well, the approach we've taken so far is identifying who has those wells, seeing if and our plan is to see, based on the county well index that has a record of the known wells. There are some that are not part of that index that nobody knows about. But if it's in the index, we will attempt to identify that well to see if it is visible to us without interacting with the homeowner just by driving by. But our intent is the number of wells that we can look at the log record of and determine the potential contaminant risk, and look specifically at the areas that I spoke of in Part 1, which are high-risk areas or medium-risk areas. There are certain areas that are more risky than others based on the geology. Those are the private wells that we would definitely go to first and foremost and speak with the homeowners about. We're working on a bulletin or a handout that provides that type of information. The Met Council is very interested in participating in that as well. That's a common thing throughout the whole area.
And that'll happen this year?
Well, as part of our
next year?
Part 2 plan, we prescribe that we will do that, but we have 10 years of engaging effort with the public in order to ensure that it is done. So as far as the high-risk ones, once our plan is adopted and approved by the state, the high-risk areas that have private wells, those we will definitely reach out to within a year.
Okay, it'd be nice if we reached out to as many of them as possible in much less than 10 years.
Oh, yes, definitely, I agree.
How long does it take to get this plan approved by the state?
That's kind of the long process. Every time we do a step in the pattern process, it takes 90 days of review. So now that the council has heard the plan, if we adopt the plan tonight, it's already been through our neighbors' review with the local government units. Department of Health will get the plan. They'll look it over. They'll either accept it or they might offer a couple of recommendations for change.
And that's within 90 days also?
And that's within 90 days as well.
Okay, good.
Our plan is to have it fully vetted and completed by July.
Okay, great. Any other questions for Mr. Willeen? Okay, thank you. This is a public hearing. Is there anyone from the audience that wants to address the council on this wellhead protection plan?
Seeing none, I would move to close the public hearing and adopt the City of Eden Prairie Wellhead Protection Plan.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Next item is the payment of claims. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second.
Any items to question? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Aho.
Aye.
Councilmember Butcher Wickstrom.
Aye.
Councilmember Case.
Aye.
Councilmember Nelson.
Aye.
Mayor Tara Lukens.
Aye. The next section of our agenda is reports, and we have two. One is reports from council members, actually a report from the city council, which I will read. It's a summary of a closed session that we held March 31st, evaluating our city manager and his proposed salary increase. The city manager's contract provides for a performance review by the city council in conjunction with a salary review. At its meeting on March 31st, 2015, the city council went into closed session to evaluate the performance of the city manager for the calendar year 2014. The city council considered responses by city council members, department directors, and division managers to a performance review survey, and in addition, was solicited and received from various community leaders. The performance review covered the following areas: Mr. Getchow's most significant contribution or accomplishments during the year, what has not happened that you would like to have seen, Mr. Getchow's strengths, what could he do more or less of, what are his priorities for the next 12 months, his performance with respect to the city's shared expectations, and other comments not covered by these topic areas. In summary, the evaluation of his performance is that Mr. Getchow continues to do an excellent job as city manager, and that the council is proud to have him as our city manager and proud to have him represent the city. That Mr. Getchow is a great city manager and leader. He's a great role model for employees. People enjoy working for him, which results in greater collaboration and cooperation, and that the council continues to believe that we hired the right person for the job. So Mr. Getchow's current salary is $155,584. Based on his performance, it's proposed to raise his salary to $163,363. Do we need to take action actually on that?
Yes, you do.
Okay. Is there a motion for approval of that
So moved.
salary review and
Second.
increase? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
The motion passes. Thank you very much for another great year. We appreciate it and look forward to yet another great year in 2015.
Yeah.
Thank you. Report of the Public Works Director regarding train speeds. Mr. Ellis.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor, City Council. So let me first just preface this by saying that our office does not routinely get concerns about train speed in Eden Prairie. If we do, it's generally horns, it's noise issues. But if we were to get a complaint or a concern about train speeds, what I would tell the public is that the authority to set train speeds rests solely with the Federal Rail Administration. This is a federal issue. And that in doing so, they would take a look at track geometrics, they would look at the condition of the track, they would look at what type of warning systems are in place at crossings, the volume of freight. They'll look at things like that before they determine what the speed limit should be. In Eden Prairie, the speed limit has been set at 30 miles per hour. And it's operated by Twin Cities and Western Railway. They're a Class 3 railroad company, privately held, and they're authorized to, on average, cross 3 trains per day through Eden Prairie. Now that's on average, so some days they can do 5, just as long as over the course of a year, it's averaging out to 3 trains per day. So that's the type of volume and speed we're dealing with. Now, having said that, I will say that the Minnesota Department of Transportation, Office of Rail Administration, can temporarily set train speeds, reduce them, and they'll do that for emergency purposes only. Let's say a set of gate arms aren't working properly, or a constant warning system is malfunctioning, or maybe tracks have deteriorated and need to be repaired. They have the authority to go in and trump FRA and say, hey, we have a situation, drop your train speeds. So we don't have a situation like that in Eden Prairie. The tracks are in good condition. They get routinely maintained, and in fact, I believe 2 of our 3 signals are being upgraded here this year. So I think that they're in good condition. So just wanted to provide that report again. It's not that we get frequent requests to have train speeds reduced. Generally what we hear when we hear from the public about trains, it's the horns.
Okay. Any questions
No, thank you.
for Mr. Ellis? Thank you. That brings us to end of the council meeting. I'm looking out at our audience. We have a lot of high school students here tonight. If you have any questions that you want to ask of us after the meeting, please feel free to come up. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.